It's March, and for 29 days now we've been recognizing Women's History Month. As we reach the end of the month, I wanted to be certain to create an episode in honor of Women's History Month that might serve as a source of inspiration for all the young girls in our lives. And with that in mind, I hope you'll share this with them. In this episode, I'll offer up a couple of artifacts and a brief history of one astronaut who, upon an encounter with her at Space Fest in 2016, immediately found herself on my personal list of all-time favorite astronauts and among my favorite people in general. The arc of her story is an absolutely amazing one, and I hope the young ladies watching this may see a bit of themselves in her and think, wow, I might just want to see where science, technology, engineering, art, and math can take me. Are you ready to find out a little bit more about this extraordinary woman? Yes, you say? Well, away we go. Hello collectors and space fans, I'm Jim Frangione and welcome back for the latest installment of Taking Up Space, the place where space history lives and where every artifact tells a story, where we seek to preserve vintage artifacts, reveal their history, and hopefully inspire some of you in the next generation of space explorers to take on interest relating to science, technology, engineering, art, and math. If you're as passionate as I am about the history of spaceflight or the preservation of space-age history, be sure to click on the subscribe button and notification bell down below so that you don't miss out on a single episode. As I mentioned in the opening, it's Women's History Month, and I'm happy to say that we'll get this particular episode in just under the wire before the closing of the month. Today I'll share a few of the items in my collection that relate to the astronaut Nicole Stott, a flight engineer on expeditions 20 and 21 to the International Space Station, and a mission specialist on Space Shuttle missions STS-128 and STS-133. But her story is so much more than that. Astronauts, as we know, make up a very small and elite group of people. To this day, only about 600 individuals have ever flown in space. To put that in perspective, if a single 747 jet aircraft were configured with only coach seating, it could fly 660 passengers. You could fit every human being to ever fly in space on that one plane and still have some seats left over. That's some pretty fast company. But in meeting Nicole Stott at Space Fest 7 in Tucson, Arizona back in 2016, I realized that viewing her as an astronaut was extremely limiting. The surprise of surprises for me, I went into a room excited to meet men who walked on the moon, and left that very same room most impressed by Nicole Stott. Now that's not to say that the mythological heroes of Apollo didn't live up to expectation. Far from it. Spending time with them still seems surreal. But Nicole Stott's journey was so completely unlike theirs that it was every bit as compelling, in many ways more so. For all of the impossibility of the military test piloting heroics of her predecessors, her journey to space seemed, well, to hear her tell it, distinctly possible. Possible, did you say? I was intrigued and I was enthralled. Born in Albany, New York and raised in Florida, her journey began with an early interest in aviation as the daughter of a small plane enthusiast. Sadly, she lost her dad at the age of 16 in the crash of a small aircraft. But for her to understand how and why, it only served to strengthen her curiosity about aeronautics and her own resolve to fly. How and why, the basic beginnings of all scientific endeavors. Her academic journey started humbly enough at what was then St. Petersburg Junior College, where she studied aviation administration. She ultimately completed her bachelor's degree from Embry-Riddle University and her master's degree in engineering management from the University of Central Florida. After a brief stint with Pratt & Whitney as a structural design engineer, she took a job as a civilian at the Kennedy Space Center, working in the Space Shuttle Orbiter Processing Facility, ultimately becoming an orbiter project engineer for the Space Shuttle Columbia and the assistant to the flow director for the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Then, in 1998, she joined the Johnson Space Center team as a member of NASA's Aircraft Operation Division, where she served as a flight simulator engineer on the Space Shuttle training aircraft. Now that sounds like a cool job. And all of this was before ever applying to even become an astronaut, which took some prodding. With enough coaxing from teammates and mentors who saw something in her that she couldn't see herself, she took the big leap of picking up the pen and applying. She missed out on selection for Group 17 in 1998, but she did make the cut with Group 18 in August of 2000. Some of her astronaut colleagues from that cohort are still flying today for NASA aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon. As a part of her training, she participated in NASA's Extreme Environment Mission Operations, or NEMO, mission number 9, which presented her with what in hindsight would become the best analog for living on the space station, living and working in the Aquarius habitat on the ocean floor for 18 days in April of 2006. As mentioned previously, she flew as the flight engineer on expeditions 20 and 21 to the International Space Station in 2009, getting to ISS on Discovery as part of STS-128 and returning to Earth on Atlantis mission STS-129. She flew again in 2011 as a mission specialist on Space Shuttle Atlantis STS-133, having amassed a total of 103 days in space. But what Nicole Stott has accomplished since her time in space and with NASA has been no less spectacular. She's an accomplished watercolor artist and was actually the first person to paint in space. She's the next in a line of artists who have been in space that includes Alexei Leonov and Alan Bean. And she's a founder of the Space for Art Foundation, where she advocates for children, art, and planetary health by inspiring awe and wonder in spaceflight through the healing power of art. The Spacesuit Art Project, with children's art adorning actual spacesuits flown to the ISS, began with children participating in the Arts in Medicine program at the University of Texas MD Anderson's Children's Cancer Hospital and has grown now in cooperation with children at hospitals and in refugee centers all over the world. Let that sink in for a moment. Children with cancer and in refugee camps, kids with their heads down, courageously in the fight for their lives, being given a reason to look up and dream and aspire and to be filled with a sense of awe and wonder for their own futures. What a beautiful act of compassion, grace, and humanity, and ultimately, hope. That's why having a couple of artifacts in my collection that evoke the spirit of Nicole Stott is so thrilling to me. They not only remind me of a sense of wonder I had in meeting her and having a chance to chat and learn about these endeavors, but they speak volumes about the human capability, human spirit, and just how possible it is to do so much good in one lifetime. The artifacts here: an autographed photo, a frame display featuring the artist at work in space, along with a signed piece of postcard art and a photo from our meeting in 2016, or these unused and unflown patches that were prepared by the Centaur Science Corporation for her flight garments on expeditions 20 and 21. They really form connective tissue to her story when I share them with people, especially the patches. Placing them in the hands of a niece or a goddaughter or the girls amongst our family's friends and neighbors, and letting them know that they hold a tangible piece of evidence in their hands that they can create whatever life they choose, limited only by what they can dream up, the resulting smiles are priceless. And that's why I want to share these artifacts with you, virtually, here on Taking Up Space for Women's History Month. I hope you'll in turn share them with the girls in your life. So why do I feel that way, and why do I think her story is the perfect capstone to promote science, technology, engineering, art, and math during Women's History Month? The answer to that can be found in Nicole Stott's own words. As she put it in an interview with Florida Trend late last year, women have to be present for each other. For young girls to be interested and think they can do these kinds of things, we have to be visually present for them so that they can see it as possible. Girls need to see women as an example. Well, Miss Stott, I couldn't agree with you more, and I hope that my attempt with this profile and the sharing of these artifacts contributes even in some small way towards achieving that very goal. Young girls have an incredible example in you. And for the girls, boys, and adults out there, if you ever get a chance to meet her, listen to her speak, see her art, or tune into the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Zoom sessions with her, I'd highly encourage it. She does not disappoint. Nicole Stott, daughter, wife, mother, astronaut, artist, advocate, adventurer, and I would add, just a really, really nice person. An extraordinary human being by anybody's measure, and a shining example of girl power at its finest. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed learning a bit about one of my all-time favorite astronauts, and I hope you find her to be as big an inspiration as I find her to be. Boys and girls alike, but especially you young ladies out there, I hope Nicole Stott's story has given you a vision of just how much is possible. The stars are yours for the taking, if, as she says, you pick up the pen and apply. You might just be pleasantly surprised. If the last few minutes have left you wanting to learn more, be sure to check out the description below for links to some additional content from and about Nicole Stott. In particular, I love her TEDx talks and the NASA Sea Spotlight titled In Their Own Words. I've also included links to the Space for Art Foundation if you'd like to take a look and perhaps make a donation, and to her website where you can make purchases and even pre-order a copy of her upcoming book that's due out in October. Having listened to Nicole Stott speak, I know this book promises to be a home run, a book that will hold an honored place on any bookshelf, and if you pre-order through her site, You'll even be able to get a signed bookplate inspired by her art to keep with it. Outside of actually meeting her in person, I don't know that it gets any better than that. Thanks a million for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up down below, and feel free to let me know your thoughts by dropping me an email at jim.takenupspace@gmail.com. Until next time, collectors and space fans, keep your heads held high and keep your eyes on the stars. Go get 'em, ladies.